Good morning. Good morning, everybody. This is Paul Cramey. Welcome to the session today. This is a first of two parts, today and Thursday. Today, we're going to just do some very basic things and looking in control and seeing how you log in and log out, review quickly the home screen, and we'll spend a little bit more time on how you find different things in control. For example, companies and estimates and orders. How the search mechanism works. We'll review a very few piece items in the user options. You can use the user options to kind of tailor things to your own preferences. Do a quick review of the activity manager for scheduling meetings and appointments and other activities, and mention just briefly at the end other resources that might be available. Then on Thursday, we'll get into a little bit more detail. We'll actually review adding a new customer or company to your database, adding contacts, creating an estimate, converting that estimate to an order. We spent quite a bit of time talking about statuses, and that's statuses of estimates and statuses of orders. Very, very important concept to grasp and understand. Do a quick review of the same mechanism, how you can tailor the system to set up some what we refer to as quick products. In other words, products that are common to how you're going to be using the system, and then a review of the print options. Now, I'll pause periodically during our discussion today so that you can ask questions. And to do that, there's a dialog box on the webinar that's labeled questions. And if you have a question, just click that little diamond that I think is next to that word, and you can enter your question or type your question and who it is. And either Paula or Kristen, when they join in, they will kind of monitor the questions, and we'll pause. I'll pause maybe 3 or 4 times to see if we have questions. So with that said, I'm going to switch views, and we're going to now begin to look at control. So everybody should be seeing control. So let's begin. That is going to be using control has to log in, and they have to have a username and a password to do that. Now, generally for new employees, the manager or the owner will set up the employee in the system, and they will be given a username, and then they'll be assigned a password. Then subsequent to that, when you log in, when the new employee logs in, if they're new, then they will be prompted to change their password. So the passwords have to be 8 characters in length, and they have to at least 1 uppercase letter, and they have to contain at least 1 numeric letter. Now I've already logged in, so I'm going to log out so that you can kind of see what that login process looks like. Mine is a little bit different than what you will see because of the environment that I'm in. Ordinarily, you would see just the entry of the login name and the entry of the password. So you would enter your username in the login section, and you would enter your password in the second section under password, and then click OK. Now, I'm going to not do that because I've already, my environment is different. So I'm just going to click OK, and then I'll be logged back in the system. Now, when you're prompted to change your password, which you will periodically be required to change your password, the system will not permit you to reuse the same password over and over again. So you kind of have to be creative. And my suggestion is kind of a pattern of how you alter your password, so you can get into a rhythm and it being satisfactory to control, but at the same time not not difficult for you to to manage. Now there are two features in control that I want to comment on. One is called auto lock out, and the other one is auto log off. The lock out mechanism has always been a feature of control clear back to the beginning of time. The auto log off is a newer feature that is a function of what version of control you're using. If you see where I'm circling up at the top, I think on everybody's system, it will identify what version of control you're using. And if you're using 6.1 or the latest version, then that auto log off will be included. Now, the difference between the two is that the lock feature, after a period of idleness, will lock the screen, and you will have to enter your password to wake it up and resume working again. The log off is also time-based, and after a certain period of time where nothing has been happening, it will actually log you off. That will require you to log back in. Now, those two features are both optional. You don't have to use them. And we'll look at little bit later, we'll look at the user options to see how you can make the change to to use or not use those two features. So you can log out here as well as up here at the top. You can lock the screen. If you're going to go away from the system for a while and you want to deliberately lock the screen so that no one else, if they don't know your password, would be able to do any entry. So you can kind of trigger those functions yourself. The key thing here is that if you're going to if you're done, you want to log out and completely close control, the easiest way is the exit button, and just click the exit, and you can close the program altogether. So the key takeaways here, before I pause for just a second, the key takeaways here are that you have to have a user ID that will be pre-assigned. You have to have a password, and that password has to be 8 characters. You have to have at least one capital, and you have to have at least one numeric character. And if you're logging in for the first time, then you're going to likely be forced to change your password. And then over time, the system will give you a prompt that says that you have to change your password, and it'll walk you through the process of doing that. So if we take a couple seconds to see if we have any questions. If not, I will continue on. I don't see any, so let's keep on trucking here. Next thing I want to talk about here, some of the different aspects of control, specifically these top 2 rows up here. These are referred to as the taskbar, and each of these have different functions that can be performed. So if I click on the word file, you can see some of the things that can be done. action is a different list of functions that can be triggered, tools, and all the way across the top row. Now, if you see the little diamond here, and I've clicked on it, if there are things on that taskbar that are not of interest to you and that you're not going to be needing to use on a day-to-day basis, then you can turn them off. For example, if you're not going to be involved in the sales and marketing, any sales and marketing activities, if you just click that, then that function disappears from the taskbar. I'll turn it back on, and if you're not going to be involved in the anything related to production, you would simply take it off. So it's a quick means of being able to tailor some of and simplify some of the functions and features of the system that you're going to use. So I think that's a very helpful item to help you kind of clean things up. The second row is similar. As we talked about, you can log out. We'll talk about dashboards. And if I click the dashboard downward arrow, these are some of the standard dashboards that that exist, and they're depending on how you're using the system. Then a different dashboard may be more appropriate for your day-to-day use. And what you see here are some of the standard dashboards that have been created. So if you're involved in the accounting and manage the accounts receivables or work with accounts receivables, then a different dashboard that's tailored to that aspect of the day-to-day use of the system would be probably more appropriate. And similarly, there are other dashboards related to I'm just trying to pick one here that from a management perspective, it shows you what's going on, and it's a different view. Now, what you see here in these blue headings, those are called instruments. And when you can edit a dashboard, you can take an existing one and you can edit it by either rearranging the dashboard or the instruments, or taking one off and adding another one. The actual mechanism of doing that is a topic for a different day, a different webinar. But I just want to make you aware that the dashboards can be altered. You can start from scratch and build a brand new one, or you can take an existing one and edit it and save it, and then use that. Now, when we get into a discussion of the user options, you can permanently change what the dashboard is that you want to use as your default, rather than the one that we're looking at. So that you can do when we get into a discussion of the dashboards. Now, so we've talked about the top row and the second row. Similarly here, if there are things in the second row of the taskbar that you don't need to see and don't want to be, so if you're never going to be involved in handling payments, then you would take the payment button off. If you're never going to be involved in any end of day processing for closing the system out and getting ready for the next business day, if you're never going to do that, then you would simply turn those one or the other or both are off. So it's similar to the top row of the taskbar, that you can tailor the what does and doesn't appear. You can tailor that to your preferences. Now, depending on what you're doing in the system, there's another item over here, another aspect of the system that's called the action toolbar that appears on the far right-hand side of the screen. And the common things that you're going to see there are the ability to edit, maybe the ability to save, to cancel, to clone or duplicate and clone. Those are pretty consistent and always appearing on that right-hand side. Other things may appear depending on actually what it is that you're doing. But this is called the action toolbar, and it's where you're going to go to print something. It's where you're going to go to clone something. It's where you're going to go to perhaps to change statuses of estimates or of orders. So again, I'm kind of at a stopping point. I don't see that there are any questions that have been posted. So if there aren't any, I'll just continue. I'll continue on. All right. Now, the next item that I want to cover is deals with searching for and finding things in control. And the mechanism to do that is called Explore. Explore can be accessed up in the top of the second row of the taskbar. And you'll notice that Explore also exists on this particular navigation-based dashboard. Generally, you're going to find that it's going to be easier to access Explore up in the taskbar, because if you've got 2 or 3 or 4 screens active, and by screens, you're going to see them go across this blue band, and I'll show you in a second. But if you've got 3 or 4 things that are open, then it may not be convenient to try to choose Explore, from this particular home screen. Explorer is how you find literally everything in the system. So if I pull the diamond down, you're going to see all of the different things that you can search for. You can search for orders, for estimates, specific line items, companies, contacts, vendors, purchase orders. So you can search for, I think that's 14 or 15 different kinds of items or things that you can search for. I'm going to just quickly touch on 3 of them that are probably the most common, and that would be the search for companies, the search for orders, and the search for estimates. So let's begin by selecting Explore Companies. Now, when you're searching for something, you're going to be exposed to the concept of the search criteria up here at the top left, and display filters. And the concepts behind those are really important. So if I am searching for companies that are your clients, you would want, I'm going to take that out. You can do that by beginning to type in the company's name. Okay, so I'm going to refresh that and put a couple of other items in here so that you can see what I'm talking about. So what I just did, I came down to the filters and said, I am interested in seeing customers that are my clients and that are prospects. Now, what's the difference between the two? When you create a brand new client or customer, they're going to be defined by the system as a prospect. And that means that they don't have an order. You have not created any orders for them yet. As soon as you've created and saved an order, then they're going to be a client. Client means that they have orders. So that's the primary search or filters that I would choose if I were wanting to choose a company. Now you can choose a company. Notice over here to the left that I've got some customers that begin with C and an N and several with T and a W. Okay, so if I am interested in I'm just going to enter the letter W. So what the system just did is begin to search based on as you add characters. So if I had, let's go back up to the T, because there are multiple ones in there. Now, as I would begin to enter the other letters and pause right there, it's still showing all of them because I entered the word test and then a space. And now if I enter the letter A, now it's going to narrow that search down. So as you progressively type the name of a company, the system is going to help you by narrowing and narrowing and narrowing down the choice of options. So generally, when you're doing a search for a company, you're probably going to actually want to enter the name of that company and narrow it down that way. You could also, in addition to the company, or in lieu of the company, you could do a search based on the first name and the last name, or an email. So that all of these are different criteria that you can use to find what it is that you're looking for. Now, so if we've done that, then you could further filter things down by saying, I not only want to identify the company, but I want to be more specific and say, I only want to see those that have estimates. I only want to see those that have orders, or both of them. And notice that that one disappeared. So this particular company, the test A, does not have a combination where they have both orders and estimates. So if I take the orders off, now it shows up. If I take the estimate off, it disappears. So this company doesn't have orders, okay? So you can do your search criteria. You can alter your filters. A company can also be a customer of yours, and they could conceivably be a vendor where you're buying items or goods from them. In that case, you would want to, include them as a vendor as your criteria. Now, typically, you're going to have certain things that are repetitive in the way you want your search to work. So if the normal pattern is that you're interested in clients and prospects, maybe vendors, I'll take it off. And with these two display filters, if that is going to be your normal pattern, then you would come down to the bottom of this first column and choose the Save button. And that becomes your default, okay? Now let's switch our discussion a little bit and search for orders. Again, you have the same concept. You have search criteria and you have display filters. The search criteria is somewhat similar to searching for a company, but yet it has some differences. So you could begin by just entering the actual number that you want, okay? And I stopped at the all 4 digits or short of the 4 digits, so it didn't find one with that combination. So you could search for a specific order if you know it. You could search for a company, first name, last name, and other criteria as well. Down at the bottom, you could further narrow things down by doing additional filters. Okay. Now on orders, the filters will focus on the status of the orders. So an order is going to begin its life as work in process. When the work is completed and you're ready to deliver it, or you're ready to install it, or you're ready to have the customer pick it up, then the next stage or status in the life of it would be that it's in a built status. When the customer has received the finished goods, that becomes a sale. And the fourth status is called closed, and that is that it is a sale, but you have been paid in full. So they're happy, you're happy, because you have the money and they have the goods. That represents the fourth status of closed. And void is when you create an order and somewhere during the process of things, it becomes appropriate to cancel or to void that order. So now if I had left all 4 of these selected, I can also specify a date range. So here I've said I want to look at these different statuses of orders during the first quarter, or this quarter, which would be the second quarter of the year. I could change that and look at this year. I could give it a specific start and end date if I wanted to do it that way. And again, you can save the settings to represent your default. Now, in shops or businesses that are quite mature, if you have all 4 of these selected, you're going to see a very, very long list, up in the hundreds, perhaps thousands of orders. So it may be more appropriate to narrow, depending on what it is that you're looking for. It may be more appropriate to be somewhat more selective, so that you have fewer things to look at before deciding what it is that you're looking for. So you may want to choose that I just want to look at stuff that's in work in process. I could conceivably want to include things that are built or just built. So again, the point is that you can alter the filters, and those filters are going to become a means of helping simplify and narrow down more quickly what it is that you're looking for. Now, we'll do estimates just real quick, because there's a lot of similarities, but some very subtle differences. The search criteria is pretty much the same, except that here you would be searching for an estimate rather than an order. The rest of these are going to be similar, to that of an order. Now, when you get down into the filters, they're going to be different. They're still going to be based on statuses, but this case, they're going to be statuses that are related to estimates and not orders. So an estimate is going to begin its life as pending. It's pending conversion to an order, hopefully. So that's how it's going to begin its life. Other statuses are hopefully the next one in the life of that estimate is going to be that it was converted, meaning created as an estimate, saved as an estimate, and then converted to an order. Sometimes an estimate you'll just mark it as lost because the customer elected not to move forward with the project. So that's going to be the third one. The fourth one, there may be cases where you created an estimate and it's been in the system, you worked on it, you worked on it, and you worked on it. You're not hearing back from the client, and you might choose to deliberately mark it as voided. Again, you can save the settings for what it is that you're looking for. And if you would put on the both estimates that are pending and estimates that are converted, now you're seeing a combination of the two. I'm going to take that one off. Now, the next thing I want to do is to come back up and search for orders, or I'm sorry, search for companies. But I want to show you what I think is a very powerful feature of the system. So the search criteria up here at the top is called the primary search, is based on the company. And then down at the very bottom left in this blue bar, notice the word Sub Explorer. I can say I want to search primarily for a company, but I'm interested in knowing the orders for that company. So if I select this first customer, now it's showing me the orders for this SeerSkills 1116 customer down at the bottom. So you can begin to search by the company, and then using the Sub Explorer, narrow it down so that you can see specifically either orders or estimates, and even other types of secondary searches. Very, very efficient way of finding things in a quick and orderly fashion. Now, let me close this again. And come back up. Now across the top, no matter what type of search you're doing, you're going to see a series of columns. These are the different. Represent the default. What you will see across there typically is going to be the company number, the status of that company, primary contact, and other things. There are other columns that you can either add or columns that you can remove if you're not interested in them. And you would do that by selecting up there anywhere in that area, and we'll get a right mouse click and come down to this thing called Column Chooser. If I select it, I'm going to bring it up so we can see it a little bit better. These are other columns, represent other columns that contain other information that I could conceivably add to the list. So I could put in their, let's just do the credit balance, okay? So I'm going to select it, and I'm going to drag it up. And now it shows me not only who the customer is and whether or not they have a credit balance. Credit balance is going to occur either deliberately, where you've given them a credit balance, or that they paid you more than an invoice was valued at, and the excess becomes a customer credit. So you could have chosen to see that. I'm going to take it out and just take it out. And if you don't want a column, if you didn't want that one, you could just grab the heading and take it down, and it will disappear from the list. Again, the purpose of it is so that you can tailor what you see for the different kinds of searches that are going to be more representative of what is the most logical for you. Now, there's another feature that I want to comment on, then we'll pause for some questions again. I'm going to do a search for orders, and I'm just going to randomly open this one, okay? Notice in the top left, it's telling you that the order is 1044. That shows there as well. Now, if I had created that from a different order, I'm going to do it so I can do it a little bit faster. And okay, let's do this one. Here I'm looking for an estimate, okay? So the estimate number that I chose to look at is 541. But this is what I wanted to show you. This tells me that this estimate was created from estimate number 523. Now, what's the significance of that? It's often very, very helpful if you're creating an order or you're creating an estimate from something else that already exists. It's helpful to be able to easily and quickly see what that was. So this estimate could have conceivably been created by cloning an order. Or it could be that an estimate, a new estimate was created by cloning either another order or an estimate. So it's helpful to be able to see that. Now notice that if I click this, I can actually open what that other item was. So now that's what I started with. I clicked on the estimate that it was created from, which is 523, and it opened that estimate as well. So this could be helpful to help you kind of go back and forth if you needed to see some specific things about that order. Now I'm going to come back to orders because there's another concept that I want to introduce you to, and it's called associated orders. Okay, and what that means is that I'm going to just expand this so we can see more data. What this allows you to do, if you're creating an order and it is associated with, in some way, a different order, I can make that association. So this order number 1040 is associated with order number 1014. So let's look at that order. Now what you're seeing is that this is associated with order 1014 and order 1038. So that shows the association that there's something that's related among these three orders that might be of interest and helpful when you're looking at the details of this order. Now, just like on the other one, I could have opened that other one, and now it opened this one. That wasn't so it was created from scratch. Okay, so I could come back and open up this one, and it was created from yet a different order, 1014, In other words, this one, and it's also associated with order 10 with 1017. So it gives you the ability to make those associations. So now the question is, well, how do you associate an order with something else? So let's go back up, and I'm just going to randomly pick this one. And if I go to the totals tab, I can choose this and choose the search after I edit it. Now I can find what I want to associate it with. So let's say that I want to associate it with 1012 for some reason. So now I can save that. And save it. And now that order is associated with 1012. Have I confused everybody? Let me pause and see if we've got some questions. Because that associated order, I think, is an excellent mechanism. It still is evolving on some practical uses on how it can really be of value to you. But now I think it's just the ability to see deeper and see how things might be connected together. Okay? See if we've got any questions. I don't see any that have been posted. One thing that I wanted to kind of step backwards on now that we've covered a lot of territory, and that's the discussion of this thing called history. As you begin to use control day after day after day, you're going to be doing a lot of different things. You will have opened and closed multiple orders or estimates and done many different things. This history gives you a means of looking at what you have been doing and get back to that point quickly. I can't tell you how many times that before this feature became available when I was in business, that I'd have to rack my brain and recall what I had been doing early in the morning. And it was hard to do. This is a mechanism that will allow you to go back and look at the history of what's been going on since you've logged in and get back to that point. So that's what's below this line right here, is just a log of things that you have been doing that you might want to get back to. Now, up here at the top, these are items that I have deliberately tagged, or using the terminology that control uses, is pinned, and say, I want to highlight those and have them appear at the top of the list. Okay, so I'm going to open this one, and if we go to the totals page, my mind is going blank on me here just a second on how that pinning. I'm going to have to dust my cobwebs off. I can't find where it is that you actually can do that pinning. But that's the concept that I'll dust my memory off and be able to answer that on Thursday when we get back. But the history, I really just wanted to show you the value of the history and the concepts behind it. And then I'll refresh my memory on how to pin an item that might be of importance to you. User options and different things of that nature. Let's touch base on that. To do a lot of things in control is handled in this area called setup. Now, not everybody is going to have permission to do everything that we're looking at. So you have to have the privileges or the permissions to do some of the things that are on this list. Not everybody can be able to get into the nitty gritty and make adjustments at the system level, or adding or things about employees, or counting, or reporting, or handling security, or more importantly, handling things that are the basics of pricing. So some of these require administrative privileges. System setup is one that I wanted to start with and talk about. There are some things in here that apply universally to all users that may log into control at different times. Email is one of them. So the parameters here related to emailing are global in nature. And this simply is saying that the mechanism for sending emails is through Outlook. And that's really the parameter, the extent of the parameter that has to apply. So that's the global parameter for emailing. There are times that you would want to, as a salesperson perhaps, to use your email preferences. That's where the notion of user options comes in. So this is the system setup parameters are global in nature. User options are login based. If I come down to the bottom, now I can give my preferences for emailing. It could be Outlook, it could be something different. And I can tailor some of the other things that so that it's going to use, the system is going to use my email preferences, for sending emails. So that's one of the things that I wanted to highlight on user options. You can tailor the emailing parameters to yourself. Dashboards. This is the current default dashboard that has been assigned to me when I log in. But if I wanted to, I could edit that, and you don't have to have privileges to do it. I could have changed that to a different dashboard and saved it. And now that would become my preference, my default, rather than the one that's currently there. Miscellaneous. I've got to cancel this. Now I can get there. Okay, miscellaneous. This one, let's talk about it a little bit more extensively. This is where the lock out and log off parameters are set. So you can see I don't have either one of these set for my day-to-day use. But if I wanted to change one or both, so if I wanted to have the system automatically log me out, I would put a check mark there, and the default is going to be that it's going to wait 10 minutes of being idle before the system would attempt to log me out. If I also wanted it to lock the screen after a period of idleness, I can do that by selecting it and putting in a number of minutes, so that you can change the minutes. The default is set at 10. Okay. So that represents the most logical things that you might want to change. I'm going to turn both of those off again. Now down here on a timestamp, if I wanted to use a date timestamp and use it as in notes or things of that nature, I can put that in here in the date time by choosing that item, or I could add to it. Okay, I'm going to get rid of both of them. And I could either choose the date time, I could choose the date, the day of week, the time, or something related to the user. The timestamp could be very helpful as you're entering notes into the system, that rather than have to manually enter the date time, you could just do a control, I think it's a control T, and it will add that date time. So the last thing on this, on the user options that can be tailored, are quick products. I know where it is. It's under transactions. I am in the wrong spot here, just a second. This is where I wanted to go. Again, you may not have the privileges to do this. It's under setup, pricing setup, and all pricing. This, and then the quick products at the bottom left. These just simply are intended to represent products that you're going to use on a repetitive basis, and you want them to be highlighted so that you can more quickly choose them. So you can come in and edit this list, and if you want to remove one, just click the X. If you wanted to add one or change one or rearrange them, you can do that. And so here there are a dozen of them that have been added. Okay. All right. Activity Manager. I managed to change the view, so I'm not going to try to make it smaller. But the Activity Manager is this one right here, or up here at the top. Let's quickly look at the Activity Manager, okay? The significant points about the Activity Manager, you can use it to schedule or keep track of things, okay? So here are the calendars that I could include and be able to see. So right now, I'm only looking at my calendar activity. I could have put a check mark on others if I wanted to see, in addition to my calendar, I wanted to see Linda's calendar. So now I'm looking at my own, and now I'm over here on the right, I'm looking at her calendar, okay? So you can have different calendar views. You can look at one day, which is what I'm looking at now. I can look at a 5-day increment. I can look at a week's increment. I can view at an entire month, okay? So what it is that you're looking at is really a preference. Now, these, if you're going to add something, you can come over to the action toolbar, and I can click the little arrow. These are the types of activities that I can create. I can create something that's for an email. Just create a note. I'm scheduling, it's a new call, it's a new appointment, it's a new meeting, just a simple old to-do list, work assignment, initiating the macro. So let's do a meeting. So no matter what I select from this list of activities, you're going to see a screen similar to this. So this is the input section, so to speak, of what the meeting is, of a meeting that I want to schedule. Now, right now, it only has my name listed there. But if this meeting was going to involve 2 or 3 or 4 people, I would simply come up to add and say, add Linda's, and say, okay, now it's going, this meeting that I'm scheduling is going to appear on both calendars, okay? Over here at the type, it's I chose meeting, so that's the type. I've not really ever used that. Whether you want a reminder or not, any kind of a description. If it's going to be relevant to a specific order, you can select that, or to a specific customer, you can put that in. You can add some general notes. So if I did the Control T, like I talked about earlier, maybe you can't do it in the calendar. I thought maybe I could cheat and demonstrate that. So the company, the contacts, and that kind of stuff, whether it's going to be on a specific day, whether it's going to be at a specific time or timeless, just sometime during the day. So the schedule time for this, I would come over and choose the time. If it was going to be timeless, just sometime during the day. If it was going to be an all-day event, and whether it was going to be required to roll over if the item didn't get completed on the day that it was scheduled. If you check this, then it would roll over, the system would roll it over to the next day, okay? Now, the concept here is that if one of these items had completed, let me come back up here to the top to show completed. If I clicked on show completed, and notice this item showed up. So if an item has been completed, whether it's a meeting, an appointment, or a to-do thing, or whatever, you can complete an item by doing a right mouse click and saying complete with no changes, adding a note, or doing another schedule. So if I'm just completing it, that's what I'm going to choose. And then it's going to prompt me if I want to show it completed on all calendars or just on mine. So let's do all calendars. Now it is highlighted that it's been completed. And if I don't want to see the completed items, then I can come back up here to the top, and now it's only showing those items that have not been completed, okay? So there's a lot of stuff. The calendar is, I've only barely scratched the surface. The calendar can be used from a production standpoint to schedule equipment. and that's a whole different subject for a different time. You can and use it. The calendar can be used in conjunction, or the activity manager can be used in conjunction with queries, standard queries that you may have created, and even the use of macros, where the macro would actually trigger the creation of an activity. And what you're seeing here is an example of that, okay? That in one of the other sessions that I had done a while back, it triggered an activity, okay? So the calendar can be used, it's very powerful. It can be used to just as a simple calendar to schedule things, and you keep track of them, mark them complete when they are. Then it can become more sophisticated in how it's used to schedule equipment, to schedule people, to schedule other things like that, and have things created automatically as a part of a macro and query combination. I'm going to open this one up. Just dawned on me on something that I could come up.
Paul?
Yeah.
Hey, I also wanted to let you know that it's a little bit past 11:01 right now. And
Okay.
while you're doing that, I had also posted to you, I posted to the team about pinning on that history. It's
Okay.
right click on the service ticket block. If you have an order open, you can right click on it at the top blue bar and pin it to history.
Okay. Let me just do that, and then we'll wrap up here. I'm going to do a Control, Shift, and a T. That doesn't work in the Activity Manager. I was just trying to demonstrate the date time thing. Okay, let's close out here and come into I didn't want to do that. I wanted to explore for orders or estimates. And the service ticket number, Paula?
Yes, at the very top in the blue bar, if you just hover over the estimate 542 and right click and pin this page to history is just above the history.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So now if we go back up to look at that history, now the 542 is there. Excellent. Thank you a lot. We've run over. I think I have covered everything that I wanted. With one exception, I want to do that just real quick. On the home screen, on this particular home screen, or dashboard, I should say, there are some important things here to look at. If you've got an issue and you need help, you can come to this home screen and click this link, and it will bring you to a login where you would log in with your username and your password. And what that would do is, I'm not going to go there in the interest of time, but I would just put in my username, my password, and it will take you to a link where you can create a service ticket where you're requesting help. If you've got a problem, something's wrong, you need tech support to help you, rather than call or rather than send an email, simply go to this link and fill out the form, and then tech support will get that and they can trigger. So it's going to save you time. It's going to save them time. That's the primary thing that I wanted to comment on, is that getting assistance is you can do from within control, and this is the mechanism to do that. Okay, any last minute questions of any nature? If not, we'll see hopefully everybody on Wednesday or on Thursday, and we'll go into a little bit more detail on actual orders. If not, thank you everybody for being here today, and I hope this was helpful. Take care.
Thank you, everyone. We'll see you on Thursday.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.